Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Fiesta Bowl preview edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network, brought to you by Good Dog Beverage Company. Kevin, the lead up to this game has been interesting to say the least. Penn State is no stranger to the Fiesta Bowl. In fact, James Franklin was there just a couple of years ago. They won over Chris Peterson's Washington team. Chris Peterson had previously grown to Fiesta Bowl lore and fame as coach of the Boise State Broncos. Yes, my beloved Broncos. But this is a business trip. This is a playoff game. This is not the Fiesta Bowl that we're used to. This is not the, all right, well, we're going to go to Top Golf or we're going to go out in the desert and tour or whatever. This is a business trip. This is, for all intents and purposes, could be the last game of the season for either team. On the flip side, Boise State, please count us out. Spencer Danielson, I spent the week covering the Boise State side of things for NSN, and it's fascinating because the amount of media presence for anything Penn State is always huge. You have 50 to 60 people hopped into Zoom. There were 15 to 20 at that, if that, I should say, for Boise State. So when I'm asking Ashton Jeanty questions or asking Spencer Danielson questions, it's a lot different of an atmosphere, albeit Zoom. They had people in person as well. But he said Monday during his press conference, please count us out. That's what Boise State is known for. It went dating back to 2007, I think it was, 2007, 2010, 2014, I think were their Fiesta Bowl trips, all wins. But that's 2017. I remember Ian Johnson getting that ball, getting the conversion, proposing in the end zone, and we never looked at Boise State the same again. 2010, obviously they had Kellen Moore, absolute stud. If I do say so myself, one of my favorite players growing up. The reason why I like Boise State. And then obviously, that 2014 team with Brian Harsin. But they are the little guy versus Penn State, the big guy. Penn State is a double-digit favorite, but Boise State is the higher seed.
Yeah, and I said something on Twitter this morning just because I kind of felt compelled for it. This is a national quarterfinal game. Yeah, it's taking place at the Fiesta Bowl. It is a win in advance situation. It feels weak, and I'm trying to think of another good word for it, but for the most part, it feels very weak. It feels weak-minded that in a national quarterfinal game, a spot in the semis are on, the Final Four is on the line. A trip to the Orange Bowl in Miami is on the line. A chance to advance in the national championship bracket, and you're hunting for bulletin board material. I think it's soft. I think it's weak. And if that's what you need at this stage in the game to get your team amped up and ready for a game, man, you've got bigger things to handle, because that means you're paying attention to the outside noise. You're looking at the spread at Vegas, and it's a large spread. I think it's 11 the last time I looked at it. I get it. But you have to believe in yourself as a team and cancel out that noise. And Boise State is doing everything but that. And they're bringing the media spotlight on them. They're bringing all this attention, and they're showing the world that they are paying attention to that. And I hate bulletin board material. I don't care what game it is. I think it's the dumbest thing ever, because if your rival or your opponent makes you care more about the game than you care about any other game that you ever play, you've got some issues. And I think that's just how I'm seeing this play out on the Boise State side.
Right. And I think the biggest thing for Boise State is now we're talking about that. We're talking about them as the underdog, which is how they want it to be. They want that. James Franklin absolutely hates bulletin board material. He has not given a single ounce of bulletin board material. And even during media day, he corrected a reporter, Ashton Jeanty, not the best running back this year, but in running back over all time. And James Franklin steers away, very far away from anything bulletin board wise, whereas this is taking away from the fact that Penn State is the better team. Penn State 1 through 85 is the better team, except for maybe one position, and that's Ashton Jeanty. Let's be real. He is the best running back, and I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see what he can do against the Penn State defense. And and vice versa, what the defense can do against them. And that's not a knock towards Boise State. Listen, I've watched many of their games, but the fact of the matter is I think Penn State is the more talented team, as they should be. They are in the Big Ten. Boise State's in the Mountain West, future Pac-12 members in 2026. So I don't know that they're orchestrating bulletin board material, but they are controlling their narrative, which is exactly what Spencer Danielson does. He is a very fascinating coach, from what I've come to learn over the course of the last week or so, because he's not afraid to mix it up. And he's only been doing this as the head coach of Boise State for a little over a year now. He was named with 3 games left, interim head coach. They took the interim tag, and he, I think, is the right guy for the job. I know people talked about Dirk Cutter, then even Chris Peterson back then, but I mean, what Spencer Danielson has been able to do is nothing short of impressive. I mean, they're in the Fiesta Bowl, and I think previously this was their ceiling. This was the group of 4 teams' ceiling, was the Fiesta Bowl or the New Year's Six. Well, now that ceiling can be a New Year's or a national championship game. So there's just so much at stake here now in the national semifinals. The build up to the game is weird. We're used to the bowl games where you get a month, really. You find out on Selection Sunday where Penn State's going, all right, well, they're going to the Fiesta Bowl. Well, we had to go to a first-round game. Now we go to this. But then you get to the first-round game, and then you got 10 more days to figure this out. And you've got Christmas. You've got New Year's Eve. Luckily, this game's on the 31st. It's the only one that's on the 31st. Everything else is on New Year's Day, which is great. Get that out of the way early. You can just sit down New Year's Day, feast out, and watch football. But the build-up to all these are weird. And then you have games like the Pop-Tart Bowl on Friday night, Friday night, which was the absolute, or I guess Saturday night, I'm sorry, the absolute craziest experience I've ever witnessed on live TV. But it's just such a weird dynamic this year.
Yeah, and just to touch on the Pop-Tart Bowl is just awesome. The tribute to the dead strawberry frosted, the cinnamon roll.
Resurrection, man.
Yeah,
the resurrection.
That just had me like, it was a little 2-minute video on Twitter that just had me geeking left and right. But yeah, and then let's just bring it back to Penn State. Like you said, it's a business trip for them. It's no bulletin board material. They have ultimate respect for Boise State. They're not taking this game lightly. Another top 10 opponent for James Franklin to face. This time as the 11-point favorite, similar to what SMU was. I think SMU was 9.5. So sounds
about right. Yeah,
sounds about right. But Penn State is on a mission to win the national title. They are taking they're going to try to take names along the way. They showed up against SMU, and despite the weather, both teams had to deal with it, obviously, because they're playing in the same weather. But now they're in a dome. Weather's not going to be a factor. I like domes for playoff games. I know it's an anti-football thing to say, but I feel like a dome gives you the best opportunity for a true test of the team itself. With no weather impacts, the best team is going to win that game as long as the turf is fixed, unlike the Super Bowl that they had there. Was it last year, 2 years ago? They had the turf fiasco there for Chiefs Eagles, I think. But I'm just excited. I think Penn State's gearing up for this. I think they're more than up to the task. And, I like that they're not feeding into the media hype. Sure, Abdul Carter's doing push-up competitions with the mascot. James Franklin's taking pictures with the mascot. They're doing all the fun bowl things there. But you got to. But in the end, they are on a mission to go win that game, and we'll see how it plays out Tuesday night.
Right, and I think and every program approaches things differently. I mean, you just look no further in the Big Ten than the Rose Bowl, and where you've got Dan Lanning in Oregon against Ryan Day and Ohio State. The way that Ryan Day and Ohio State view every other game besides the game, right, has been very, very much different. And we'll talk a little bit more about those moving forward. But again, every team approaches it differently. Boise State wants to be the underdog. They crave being the underdog. And where James Franklin has thrived is as the favorite. It's been that way since he arrived at Penn State. 9 times out of 10, if he's a favorite in a game, they're going to win. I expect that to be no different, to be honest with you. And we'll talk about that again in probably the later segment. But James Franklin, as an underdog, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, and I think he's 33-1 now as the favorite since the start of 2022. It feels like this program is just ultimately on the rise since 2022. That's kind of the turning point. They kind of rebound from that COVID year, the bad year recruiting that followed it. And, a chance to national semifinal here on the line. Going to face the winner of Notre Dame, Georgia. Should they win the game on Tuesday night, 10 days after Tuesday. I'm amped for it, and let's hope that Penn State goes out and takes care of business.
That is the hope, and we're going to talk about how they can do that when we come back for the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin Quigley, and I'm Jarrod Prugar. Kevin, Penn State, again, we talked about it. They are the favorite. They are a double-digit favorite. They should win. They have all the ability in the world to win. Obviously, what happens between those lines, very different, right? Anything can happen. The one player they have got to at least limit the scoring from, you can give up all the yards in the world as long as it doesn't lead to points, is Ashton Jeanty. Honestly, now after watching Colorado in their bowl game, I undoubtedly think he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. I do not think that Travis Hunter was the right Heisman winner. That's not me being a Boise State homer. As you know, I'm a very big Boise State fan. However, I do think that it was Jeanty's award. I was not impressed by anything that Hunter did overall against BYU.
When you were watching that game last night, did you feel it weird that the Heisman Trophy winner was in the Alamo Bowl? Yeah, on a 9-3 squad, and you're watching this game, and obviously it didn't go well for Colorado. I don't know what happened there for that to happen, but it just felt so weird to me that the Heisman Trophy winner was playing in the Alamo Bowl,
and how forced the ESPN commentators were to talk about Colorado. They didn't give credit at all where it was due, with Brigham Young doing everything possible to just absolutely manhandle the Buffaloes. They dominated them start to finish. But yeah, it was very bizarre. It was very force-fed, which is weird, and that's the other reason why I don't like it. I feel like, don't get me wrong, playing both ways is very impressive, but I didn't even view him as the defensive player of the year. Look at a guy like Abdul Carter who makes more of an impact. I understand he's a defensive back, right? Interceptions, but you got to tackle. He was disinterested, and I understand business decisions were made, but at the same time, it just wasn't impressive, and I haven't been impressed by them in a long time. But again, that's just kind of the way that it is. But for Penn State, they've got to neutralize Jeanty. He's going to get his yards, but you got to keep them 3, 5, 7, 10, not 30, 50, 70.
Yeah, and I think the one hope for Penn State here is, and not even a hope, Penn State has a stout running defense this year. They were number 1 in the country in the regular season with about 75 yards a game. After the Oregon game, because Oregon had so many yards altogether, Penn State ended up 6th or 7th in the country, averaging about 101 yards a game. So, and that includes the game against Ohio State when Quinshon Judkins ran all over them. So, number 1 rush defense in the country. Sell out to stop Ashton Jeanty, because if you stop him on first and second down, Maddox Madsen is not a prolific passer. I don't want to say he's not a bad quarterback. He's got a 62% completion rate, only 3 interceptions this season, but it's, if you get them into predictable passing situations, so 3rd and 6 and longer, or even 2nd and 10, 2nd and 12, if you can stop the first down play, get them into long, get them behind the chains. If you can play from ahead of the chains, if you're Penn State's defense, and you kind of dictate the way that the Boise State offense has to be run, that's where they're going to find success. If you give up 4, 6, 8 yards on first down to Ashton Jeanty, you're not going to have a good day. But it's going to come down to how well does Kobe King play? How well does Tony Rojas and Dom DeLuca play? So the linebacker corps is going to be important. And then how well do the defensive backs tackle? Does Jalen Reed, AJ Harris, Jalen Kimber, are they missing tackles? Is Zaki Wheatley reading plays correctly and just not fully executing and getting Ashton Genty to the ground? A lot of his yards come after contact. People try to tackle him high, right at the shoulder pads. I watched 3 games of theirs this morning. I watched the Oregon, watched the championship against UNLV, and I watched another game, San Jose State. Watched those 3 games, and every time that everyone tried to tackle him at the shoulder pads, he was getting 4, 5, 6 more yards, breaking it for another 20. You have to go in low. You have to hit him right at the bottom of the rib cage to the middle of the thigh, right in the strike zone where they teach defenders to tackle, wrap up, and get them on the ground. I think Penn State has been successful. They've been blowing through gaps. The defensive line has really started to tee off. They've really found their stride even more so in the last 3 or 4 games. So I have a lot of hopes that they can contain Ashton Genty. If you limit him, that's a fun bet. You want to send an over-under for Ashton Genty yards for the game. We'll do that in the 3rd segment, but teaser for later. I think if they can limit Ashton Genty to 100, 120 is an easy victory, because then you're forcing Maddox Madsen to beat you, and that's where if you're Penn State's defense, that's who you want to beat you. You do not want to lose to Ashton Genty.
It's the same game plan that many teams have had against Penn State this year. Force Drew Aller to beat them, right? Force Maddox Madsen to beat them. And if you're able to do that and they beat them straight up, then well-deserved. Go enjoy the Orange Bowl, whatever. But I think Penn State, if they can come out with the physicality that they had against SMU, this could be a rout. That physicality. Now, granted, that's in what I think was the loudest atmosphere at Beaver Stadium that I've ever experienced. That was loud, and it was great. It's not going to be that in the desert. It's not going to be that in Glendale, Arizona. But if you come out and match their and go above and beyond their physicality on both sides of football, because the offensive line is playing great football, defensive line is playing great football, and if you can out physical them in the trenches, the rest is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, and I think Boise State's defense is also formidable, right? They're not a slouch. They've won their games mostly at the hands of their defense. I think they went up 21-0 on UNLV, or no, they went up 20. Yeah, they went up 21-0 on UNLV in the Mountain West Championship game at home. And I mean, it was cold. It was at night, but it went up 21-0 and really didn't score much. I don't even think they scored again the rest of the game. They got 21 points real quick, and then the defense, they just played defense. So Boise State's 23rd in rush defense in the country. So Nick Singleton, Kate Allen, they're going to have a long day ahead of them, but they're 109th in pass defense. So if they want to say, hey, Drew Aller, go beat us, we're going to stop your run, Drew Aller could have an absolute feast on Tuesday night. They can get after the quarterback. They run that little amoeba front. They'll put all 7 defenders. They're 4 linemen, 3 linebackers, all on the line of scrimmage. Do that little amoeba front that the Ravens and the Steelers used to do, and you have no idea who's coming. But Penn State plays tight formations. They usually have 5 linemen and 2 tight ends in tight. So if they do give you that amoeba front, Penn State's natural formations protect against that. So I think it's a defense that Penn State can get after, but they're not one to be taken lightly. I think they've been successful. They have a +7 turnover margin this year. They forced a lot of fumbles, not too many interceptions, but a lot of forced fumbles. They're coming in, punching the ball, really cartoon-like fumbles. And we've seen a lot of that in bowl season. So they haven't played in 10 days. Ball security could be an issue. Luckily, it is indoors, but they've got to secure the football. They got to take care of it.
And the other thing, too, is that they, outside of Oregon, Boise State hasn't played a team quite like Penn State before. So, to me, that matters a little bit. The biggest thing for them moving forward, though, for Penn State especially, take care of business. Control the game. Make them play to your strengths rather than playing down to theirs. We know that Ashton Genty can run the football. That's not up for debate. He He did it regardless of who you think he played or didn't play this year. A lot of those games early in the season, he came out early. Probably should have blown the doors off the rushing record. But for him, control him, and you control this game, and you advance the national semifinals. And that's what Penn State needs to do. Honestly, you need to do whatever you got to do to win the football game, whatever that means. If it's Drew Aller having a big game, he didn't play a big game or a great game against SMU, but they got the job done. You have to figure that some of the receivers might step up here or there. Tyler Warren, they're going to look to get him away from the football, keep him off the stat sheet. Then you've got Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton. The weapons for Penn State vastly are outnumber what they have for the Broncos on offense. Defensively, let Abdul Carter feast. Hope you get a good game from Tony Rojas and Kobe King and Dom DeLuca. And if you can tackle and wrap up, keep them, again, 3-5-7 instead of 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever. This is a game that should feed right into Penn State's strength.
Yeah, and I think a guy like Omari Evans can really take the top off of this Boise State defense. Harrison Wallace, if he comes to play, I think those are Penn State's top two guys. I'd love to see Julian Fleming get in. I know he's probably fighting for snaps at the third wide receiver position with the Little Red Dog and Liam. But he's not had more than 2 catches in a game all season long. Didn't play against Oregon. Didn't get any stats, or no stats against Oregon, no stats against SMU. This is what they brought him to Penn State for. Would love to see him get involved. I just don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, if the wide receivers show up, Drew Aller's going to be able to throw the ball. It's going to be perfect conditions. Last time out against SMU, we talked about it. Cold hands, numb fingertips, not good, not conducive to throwing the ball, especially with touch. A lot of this offense relies on touch throws. So yeah, I'm hopeful for how the offense is going to perform. And I think the defense is up to the task of stopping Ashton Jeanty. And if they do that, if it's up to Maddox Madsen to beat them, if they lose to Maddox Madsen, so be it. But you've got to make sure that he is the one that beats you, and it's not some 70-yard run by Ashton Jeanty that's a backbreaker. So,
right, 100%. And I think if they're able to do that, Penn State should advance to Miami, play the Orange Bowl for the first time since 2009, if I'm not mistaken, 2008, 2009. And that's what they need to do. I'm sorry, that's the Rose Bowl back then. We're looking at probably 2004. I think I was in 8th grade. I remember watching the game. Derek Williams, Michael Robinson. No. Yeah, Michael Robinson. We'll come back for the third segment. We'll figure out who the hell played in the Orange Bowl when we come back for the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast. I do want to say it was the 2006 Orange Bowl, Bobby Bowden versus Joe Paterno, 3 overtime game. Kevin Kelly, absolute legend for Penn State as they took down the Florida State Seminoles. What a fun time. I remember I was in 2005, 2006, I was in 9th grade. Yeah, 9th grade-ish. And that was the first game that I remember staying up super late to watch all 3 overtimes. And I remember being dog tired at the end of the school the next day.
Yeah, I don't remember that game at all.
How old would you have been?
New Year's Day, 2006, I would have been 10.
Jesus Christ. Okay. All right, on to the New Year's 6 games for this year, where Kevin is much more of an adult and far less of a child. We've got first, Kevin, run us through the slate.
All right, so Penn State, Boise State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time coverage on ESPN. Tuesday night, New Year's Eve. Then Wednesday, straight ESPN slate 1, 5, and 8:45. Texas, Arizona State in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Dome conditions, don't have to worry about those. Ohio State, Oregon, probably the game of the weekend. Probably very well could be the national championship. 70 degrees and sunny from lovely Pasadena, California. At 8:45 p.m., Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Again, a dome where conditions are not a factor. Texas, Arizona State. Texas is
First of all, the Peach Bowl is awesome. I love the Peach Bowl. If you love Chick-fil-A, you love this. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is one of the most affordable stadiums to get food. I'm very interested to see how that changes, or if that changes for the national championship game.
Ticket prices are not affordable for this game. The food might be, the hot dogs might be. Credit Arthur Blank for that, but ticket prices are absurd. Texas is currently a 12.5-point favorite.
I think that's going to be the same. I think they're going to boat race them.
I'm hopeful for Arizona State. Can they win it? I don't know. Is it closer than 12.5? I hope. I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I would put money on Arizona State plus 12.5. I do think Texas wins, but I'm really hopeful for a little Cinderella story action for Arizona State. So I'm going to be watching with, conflicting interests, but I think ultimately Texas gets it done.
I think Texas does too, and I think it's going to be a 2-score game. I think Texas is ready. I just don't think they match up very well as far as Arizona State's concerned. Texas is just a far bigger, stronger, faster team. And this is not – Dillingham's, I think, could be a good coach, but he's not that great to elite coach yet, where I think Sark – he's been around the block a time or two, both good and bad. I think Sark has the opportunity and the ability to outcoach him in a lot of different ways.
That's fair. Game of the weekend, Ohio State, Oregon. Currently, Ohio State is a 2.5-point favorite. I think that opened at 1.5. It opened at 1. So the spread is going increasingly in favor of Ohio State by 1.5 points. I think Oregon is a completely different team from the beginning of the season when they played Ohio State. They had the advantage of playing them at home. Ohio State's playing pissed off, though. I think they're angry. I think they have a chip on their shoulder. But I also think Oregon, their offense found their stride against Penn State's defense. Penn State and Ohio State have a very similar defense. They found a way to beat that defense. I think they can learn a lot. Beating a team twice in the same season's always tough. They are on a longer layoff. They haven't played since, December 7th?
7th, yeah.
So they're on a long break there. Ohio State played 10 days ago. I know who you're picking, so I'm going to pick Oregon.
I like Ohio State, man. I listen. We're recording this. I'm in my wife's grandparents' basement in Springfield, Ohio, which is just 30 minutes away from Columbus. I have the Ohio fight song to my left on a canvas. Her grandfather was in the Ohio State marching band dating back to before they allowed women to be in the band. I am not saying this because Ohio State is surrounding me and smothering me. I'm saying this because I think Ohio State right now is a pissed off football team, and that's dangerous this time of year. Ryan Day has a lot to prove. Can he win the big game? Can he finally beat somebody other than Michigan? And I think they're hungry from that game before. Everybody lauded Dan Lanning and his decision-making there at the end, while everybody kind of crapped on Will Howard and Ryan Day. I think this is a perfect opportunity for them to get revenge. It is very tough to beat a team twice in the same season, and they haven't played in almost a month for Oregon. Ohio State luckily played last weekend. This is the schedule that the deal that we have to go through, and it's the same thing with all 4 high seeds. With Texas, or not with Texas, but with ASU, with Georgia, with Oregon, and with Boise State. It's all been nearly a month since they played, if not longer. But now you've got a pissed off Ohio State team that was just a play or two away from beating Oregon before. And this could be the flip side of this game. So, I mean, there's a lot that went into this, but I do think Ohio State wins, and I think it's by 3 to 7 points.
I think I could see it being a 7 to 10 point game both ways.
Yeah, this is very much a coin flip.
And I don't gamble, mostly because I'm just bought a new house, so I don't want to lose my money. I don't know if, again, I would touch Texas, Arizona State based on the fact that I think Texas is going to win. I don't know if I'd bet the money line there. think I would just bet them straight up. Oregon, Ohio State, I would not put a single dollar anywhere near that game at all. I have no idea who's going to win. I think it's probably going to be Ohio State. I want Oregon to win, so that's who I was picking. But yeah, I think both teams are capable. It's going to come down to how well does Will Howard play. Yeah. So last game on on Wednesday night. This middle of the week thing's messing me up. This game opened as a Notre Dame 1.5 point favorite. It is now at a Georgia 1.5 point favorite. In Louisiana at the Superdome. I think Carson Beck being out for the season certainly hurts Georgia. But I don't think it hurts Georgia as much as people think it hurts Georgia. I think Carson Beck was having, I don't want to say a terrible season, but a pretty bad season by his metrics for somebody who is going to be a presumptuous top 10 pick in next year's draft. I don't think he's did any favors towards that draft stock this season. Gunnar Stockton came in. Georgia was trailing at the half. He comes in the SEC championship game against Texas and goes out and wins the game for Georgia. I think it was like 7 of 13 for 56 yards, but a couple key runs, couple key drive extenders. The only problem is I think Notre Dame's offense is elite. I think Notre Dame has found their stride with Riley Leonard. He's a baller. I think he's a guy that I think he's probably out of eligibility at this point in time, or very well could go to the NFL draft at this point in time. I think he's a guy that's really done a lot. That's probably going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft should he declare. I think it's Notre Dame.
I think so too, actually. I don't like Georgia without Carson Beck. I know Carson Beck was at times a liability, but I do believe that Notre Dame, man, it's so tough. And we were going over how we wanted to rank, not necessarily rank these games, but talk about them. And Notre Dame in this game, obviously the seed feeds right into the Orange Bowl. So this is the opponent that the winner of the Fiesta Bowl would play in the Orange Bowl. I truly believe, and I hate to say this because I don't ever say anything really nice about Notre Dame. I love Marcus Freeman. I think he's one hell of a football coach.
I think he's awesome.
And I do believe they have what it takes to play in the national semifinals, and I think they would be playing Penn State, who I have beating Boise State by 10 to 14 points. Or no, I'm sorry. I have them beating them by 17. I think Penn State's going to score 34, and I think Boise State's going to have 17. I think Genty gets – we talked about the prop bet, right? We talked about the prop or the Genty prop. You said you wanted to set the over-under, right?
Yeah, what do you want to set that at?
125.
We do 135. I'll take the under if we do it at 135. 130 under. All right.
And I was going to take the over no matter what. Now, if you give up, let's say hypothetical, Penn State gives up 135 or 145 yards and a touchdown to Genty, are you thrilled?
135 and a touchdown?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one touchdown.
Penn State scores 2.
Yeah. How many touchdowns does Singleton and Katron Allen have in the game in this scenario?
Right.
No, I think I'm right there with you on score. No, I want to get aggressive. I think it's 42-21. I think Penn State can double up Boise State. 42-21. Maddox. I think even Genty scores 2 touchdowns. Maybe he has one long 70-yarder. I think Boise State's special teams are gettable. Oregon had both a kick return and a punt return for touchdown in their game against Boise State. And this is really before Oregon got going this season. I don't think Oregon found their stride until well after the Boise State game.
It's early. Yeah, 100%.
Oregon scored, 35, 30?
37. It was 37-34, I think.
So, it's a defense that's gettable. I think Penn State's offense is
Boise State's given up some points. They've given up some big chunks of points to Utah State, Georgia State, obviously very early in the season, but they gave up some serious chunks of points.
I mean, San Jose State's not a good team, and San Jose State had a very easy chance to go up 21-0 to start the game in the first quarter. They just couldn't score on a first and goal from inside the 5.
Oh, yes.
UNLV,
fourth down play, I remember.
UNLV, yeah. How many they scored? 21 maybe. Let me get that score.
Yeah.
They twice had the ball. UNLV, 21-7. UNLV, I don't think also a very good team. They're on their backup quarterback because their starter left, Haj Malik Williams. They twice got inside 1st and goal on the 5 and had a false start and a holding call, I believe, to take them well out of the red zone. I think they had a 3rd and goal from the 21-yard line or something crazy like that. So a lot of self-inflicted. I think they had quite a few turnovers in that game. Let's see. No, they only had one. I must be thinking of the San Jose State had a lot of, I think they had like 3 turnovers, and they were still able to put up 21 points against this Boise State team. So, 4 turnovers. It was a -3 margin for San Jose State against Boise State. So, despite a -3 turnover deficit, they're still able to put up 21 points. And obviously, they failed on that 1st and goal from inside the 5. So, I think this Boise State defense is very gettable, 42-21 in favor of Penn State.
Boise State's a very good team. I'm not going to discount that, but I think Penn State's better. Without a doubt, Kevin. The good news is for Boise State, they're the underdog, and that's what they want.
It sure is. And before we go, this episode was brought to you by Good Dog Beverage Company. Good Dog offers a variety of products, including vodka and whiskey cocktails, along with bourbon hard seltzers. Their Good Dogs leverage the beverage program. They donate a portion of the profits for every case sold and 100% of the merchandise sales profits to provide service dogs for people in need. You can go to gooddogbeverage.com. That's good, DOGG beverage.com to find merchandise and the closest retailer carrying Good Dog beverages to you.
Kevin, any parting shots?
Yeah. Whew. Do we got time for this? I don't know if we have time for this. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Goodness freaking gracious. Also, what a terrible schedule from the NFL. 6 division games and the Eagles and the Chiefs over the last 8 games of the season. The only team, they were the last team to play a division game in the NFL by a wide margin. Every other team's playing a division game in the first month of the season. Steelers have to wait until the last 8 weeks of the season. Ridiculous scheduling on their behalf. But kind of they are who I thought they were all season long. Frauds. I'm sick, and people are I'm gonna be crucified for this. I am sick of Mike Tomlin. Winning seasons are awesome. 10-7 is cool. But when you lose your last 5 of the season to go 10-7, or last 4 of the season to go 10-7 because you were 10-3 and then you lose out for the rest of the season, that's not good. Limp into the playoffs again. Haven't won a playoff game since like 2014, 2016. It had to have been 2016, I believe, because that was the year that they should have had home field advantage. But then the Jesse James touchdown, that wasn't, because the NFL was pro Patriots at the time. It's just an embarrassment. And they are in a constant state of purgatory because they're always drafting in like 22 to 25 in the NFL draft. They're going to make the playoffs this year. They're probably going to draft again there again. And you don't get any good players. Whiffed like the last 5 seasons of the NFL draft. They've whiffed. They could have had Creed Humphrey. I wanted them to draft Linderbaum over Najee Harris. Didn't do that. Linderbaum goes to the Ravens. I think 2 picks later goes to the Pro Bowl in his first season as a rookie center. Just embarrassment from the top down, and just another late season collapse for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just, at this point, I'm just laughing at it. And I think it's an embarrassment because you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why are we celebrating a 9-8, 10-7 season if they haven't won a playoff game in forever? They haven't been to the Super Bowl since I was a freshman in high school. I graduated high school 11 years ago. So Super Bowl 45, I believe, against the Packers, where they got their butts whooped by Aaron Rodgers. Admittedly, that team was awesome that Aaron Rodgers was on, but man, this is an embarrassment. I hate the NFL because of this, and the Steelers fans are just, well, he hasn't had a losing season. I don't care. If they don't win playoff games, it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season.
Kevin, I'm a Cowboys fan. So
that's falling on deaf ears. Sorry.
12-5 is the new 8-8. So I don't think we need to talk anymore about the NFL. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that I'm wearing a Carolina pullover today. I do want to address that before I get into bowl season. Like I said, we're with my wife's family in Ohio, and her cousins are Duke fans. So I clearly packed this outfit specifically just to troll. today, and the first thing that her cousin said when he saw me, he was like, "Go Duke," and I said, "Point proven." Like, this is exactly why I wore this shirt. So there's that. Now, of course, I do like Carolina basketball, but we also don't need to talk about that either because it's just not going very well for me right now. Not good. But bowl season is awesome. On Saturday we had the Snoop Dogg presents the Arizona Bowl, brought to you by Gin and Juice,
That was
which
awesome.
is awesome. And we also had the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which was just pure cinematic excellence. The resurrection of the Frosted Strawberry Pop-Tart. And then the Cinnamon Roll Pop-Tart that, was sacrificed. Yeah, Cam Ward opting out at halftime, which was not the weirdest thing in the world, but still very weird. I don't know how I feel about that. It was a business decision.
I think I would have liked to see it. I'm okay with the opt-out at halftime. Get the record, set the passing, touchdown, career record, whatever. I just think I would have liked to see him, take the final drive. Iowa State couldn't stop Cam Ward all day long. They really didn't stop Miami after Cam Ward sat, but does he owe Miami anything? No, he came in as a transfer, made $2 million this year at NIL, but I'm kind of okay. I thought it was a little weird, but I don't think it's not unheard of in college football for outgoing quarterbacks to make way for the backup quarterback. And I think, what was it? Hackenberg made way for McSorley in the Gator Bowl or the Tax Slayer Bowl when that transition of power happened. So I'm okay with that transition of power, but I don't know. Go win the bowl game. Go make some extra money for the university who did pay you $2 million this year to do it. And one last shout out for me. Sorry, I kind of interjected here. Shout out to Matt Rule in the Penn State Alliance Bowl. Excuse me, it was the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx. Bill O'Brien and Matt Rule were dueling. I think those are two programs on the up and up. Matt Rule's led Nebraska to the first over 500 season since 2015, 2016, something like that. Program's been down the dumps for a while, and I think, especially with Raiola, especially with Rule, they are a sleeping giant in a sloppy, ugly game.
Yes,
it was a mud bowl out there.
Yeah, 100%. I just wish the schedule was a little bit better for the way that things are all set up. We have gone through now every Saturday football game forever, or at least for 2024. Now everything will be on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, every day but Saturday, which is kind of the way that it goes. But again, Penn State takes on Boise State on Tuesday. Will they live to see another game and go play on South Beach in Miami Gardens, Florida? That remains to be seen. But Kevin and I will have a midweek edition of the Lashing Out podcast, whatever we're doing here, brought to you by Good Dog Beverage Company after the game, and we'll talk to you then. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar on the Lasching Out Podcast and Nittany Sports Now Network. We'll catch you again later this week.